Welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and its first monthly author and literary showcase on public access television. I am your host, Peter Stockwell. Each month, a different member of KLAW, as we're going to call ourselves, will conduct interviews of area authors, present examples of local books, screenplays, and other literary works by members of our KIT community. Or we're going to delve into some other subject related to the world of producing literary works of art. In this initial episode, I will be using a form of a panel discussion in order to introduce members of KLAW who are behind this production. Seated off to my left are the KLAW members, Iona Buick, Mark Miller, and Ingomar Anderson. Starting with ladies first, if you would introduce yourself and then present us a quick overview of your current activities and endeavors in this literary world we live in.
Hi, my name's Iona Buick, and I'm a screenwriter. Been produced locally, and currently working with the KLAW, the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Group, to help people learn how to market their books.
And next we have Mark Miller.
Hello, my name's Mark Miller. I'm also a local author, and one of these people, starting on my second career after like 30 years in law enforcement, decided to go back and actually try to get into writing and journalism like I had originally planned years and years and years ago. So I got involved with KLAW about a year and a half ago, and first met Iona at that time, and since that time we've been working as a group trying to promote each other and promote other writers and authors in the local area.
And next we have Ingomar Anderson, our publisher amongst us.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. Ingomar Anderson is my name. We have a publishing company in Paulsbo. But a little bit to my background, our family was always in literary work and creative work, so this is very familiar to me, but I haven't done that for most of my career. I was a consultant for software and for business, and just 5 years ago I started my own business for printing, and we started to print books, and then I got very quickly into publishing, and we have around 50 authors right now we work with, 50 active authors. We have 80 on our database, and it's really great to work with authors. And by the way, I'm very honored to be here with KLAW. This is a real great platform. I think this is going to have a great future, and I look forward to all the future series that come up.
Well, thank you. And of course, myself, I am Peter Stockwell. I'm a retired middle school teacher out of the Bremerton School District. I got into the idea of writing books because I had an idea in my head and the characters wanted out. I was getting near to retirement age, and so I began with my first book, Motive, and I wrote that. And it took me about 6 years to write this book. I attended writing conferences in New York and Cincinnati and Seattle area, and I learned how to write a book from some of the best writers in the world and editors and agents that I met. And from that, I had the second book, which is Motivations, came about because these characters in my head said they wanted their story told of the people that were being interviewed in the first book. And then I've produced a third book, Jerry's Motives, which is, all three of these are now out currently, and I'm currently working on 2 more. And I would like to make this my second career. It has been a real challenge because I have found that writing the book, once you learn how to do it, can be done, and your editors will help you make sure it's a good one. And then the producing of the book, you find help for that too, and you get the printers who will print the books. And then comes the marketing, which is one of the reasons that KLAW exists, is because we Kitsap literary artists and writers need a market. And so we are trying to introduce to you, the public, all of us who are in this area, so that you find these people who have these great works of art and you have no idea who they are yet. And over the last 8 years, I've been introducing myself to many different shows and different venues. I just finished last month at the Kitsap County Fair, and at the beginning of this month I was at the Blackberry Festival, and I do local farmers markets as well as local bookstores around the Northwest. And this is an important piece to get us known to you. And so when you are watching and you want to get an idea of who is in Kitsap County or the Olympic Peninsula or the Northwest, we'll introduce them to you. And you can then go find their works, get to know who they are, get interested in their work, and then help to support these people as they are trying to become known in their local area. So now let's delve into more specifics. Again, I think I'll go with ladies first. Iona, how would you explain how you became involved in this literary world that we live in, this world of authors and writing and this publishing? Do you have a day job?
I do. I started in the literary world because someone asked me to edit a friend's book posthumously. In the process of doing that, I learned that I didn't know anything about marketing. They don't teach you this in high school. They don't teach you in college. Most professions, they don't teach you how to market yourself. They teach you what to do stuff. But there's a big disadvantage for authors in this current world if you don't know how to market yourself. Even if you're a traditional publisher, what I found was when my friend's book was finally published, I personally thought it was really good, but because it hadn't been marketed, it's still relatively unknown. I think it's like 6 million on Amazon right now. So my goal behind this is to help people with marketing their books and learning how to market themselves, which is something that I've had to learn from trial and error.
So Mark, I understand you have a history of law enforcement. Why don't you explain how you delved from that into science fiction writing?
After retirement, it's kind of an odd thing. My wife is looking into publishing a book through a major, I guess you'd call it inspirational publisher. And out of the clear blue sky, I guess because I had been looking online for possible delving into some type of online publishing, something like that, I got contacted by one of these online publishing companies and said, hey, do you want to write a book? So being fat, dumb, and happy and, you know, full of myself and everything, I went ahead and just whipped out a book, sent it to this online publishing company, and started learning the ins and outs, like we all have been doing, of marketing and publishing and what people will do for you and what people are in for. It's strictly for the money. In other words, they want you to give them a bunch of money up front, and then maybe they'll do something for you and maybe they won't. And so I've been kind of bouncing around after that little experience, started bouncing around. I contacted Ingomar here because he's got a local publishing company and started working with him. And I also wound up stumbling into KLAW with Iona. And so for about the last year and a half, going on 2 years, I've been just harassing the heck out of her at meetings and things like that so we can get, like you said, this marketing and promoting of all the local authors and any type of literary artists like that. We've got even some potential poets coming on board and things like that. So that's kind of my background, and hopefully this showcase, once again, will provide the examples that other people can use, and then they'll come forward also and use this specific venue to try to promote themselves and what they're working on.
Very good. So Ingomar, you are a publisher, but you haven't always been in the publishing business, have you? What's
No,
your
I haven't.
background?
Well, my background is really business and IT, finance. So I was working as a consultant for about almost 15, 20 years for bigger companies, Fortune 500 companies, and I traveled a lot. So I didn't want to do that anymore, especially airplane traveling is not easy anymore. So it's easy maybe, but very cumbersome at times. So I decided to buy a business in Paulsboro, a printing business in 2013. And then everything changed because I was, my nature is, I was always a writer. I realized I wrote when I was a teenager. You know, I wrote my logs, and I have books and papers over papers that I wrote, but I never really, I wasn't an author. I was a writer. So I wrote a little book that I showed people, and I could print it with our printing company, but then I realized there's a high demand there in, you know, not just in the Northwest, but in general, authors or writers are there a lot. And they are looking for something that they can have, first of all, get their books you know, printed and in a form that, you know, people can read it, and not in a Word file that is, you know, maybe not formatted right. So we did that at the beginning, and then very fast we came to the point, you know, when are you an author, and at what point will you become an author, meaning that you're really published and known to the readership. And that's where we are today with KLAW, and I'm very thankful for Iona to start this, or to be part of it as well, and push this, because I think this is the crucial element for a publisher or for an author to have a platform that they can present their work. Otherwise, who would know about it? So this is why I'm very excited about now not only being able to print the books and publish the books on Amazon and on other various websites, maybe in bookstores, but also really create a bestseller. And that's all, you know, bestseller, when does a bestseller start? 30,000 books, maybe 10,000, you know, you make up your own goal, but selling 200 books is not really cutting.
Yeah, you mentioned the number 200. That's an interesting number, because that's about the average number of
Yeah.
sales that any given author will have in their lifetime. Most people who are writing books are going to be writing what's known as a memoir. They're writing their family history or an event that they've had, some kind of medical situation which they want to help somebody else to survive. And so they write a memoir, and then they put it out there to their families and friends. And they don't do a whole lot of marketing because they don't plan on doing a whole lot of sales, or even just giving them away, which is what most of these people will do.
We have a lot of these people as well, and we ask them first, you know, what is your goal? And many people say, you know what, I have 50 people in my family, I want everybody to have a book, and that's it. And but that's not really an author, what an author does, and yeah, so.
Getting into this fully is getting beyond the 200 books, and seeing if we can get into the thousands of books. So, authors usually have a preferred genre that they want to write in. In my particular case, I write mysteries, although one of my books that's coming out very soon happens to be about my father's sermons. My father was an Episcopal priest here in Bremerton at St. Paul's Episcopal Church from 1970 to 1981, and he retired after a 43-year career. Unfortunately, my father died of a stroke in 1986, but my mother kept his file cabinet full of his sermons, handwritten or typed out on paper, and I inherited his file cabinet. And I have it at my house where I pull out sermons and I type them up so that they're in the computers so that we can then make books out of them. And a book is coming very soon. As a matter of fact, Ingomar is going to be doing the printing for this book. And it should be a lot of fun. We have a lot of Episcopalians in the area. And I've also talked to other churches who are also interested in seeing about me bringing the book to them as well. But each of us has our genre. Iona, your screenplays, these movies you want to create, what kind of a genre are you in?
I prefer happily ever afters. That's one of my preferences, and hence I like romantic comedies. And in terms of writing, I also prefer the romance genre because of that stipulation. They have to have a happily ever after, or it's not really a romance novel. It may be a novel with romantic elements, but not a romance novel.
Type of story where boy meets girl, girl meets boy.
There's also boy meets boy,
or boy meets
and
boy,
girl meets girl now, and
Yeah.
and also other genres within the romance genre. So,
Very good.
You know, there's so much out there in terms of writing in the romance genre. I started out because somebody mentioned a website on the Amazon CreateSpace website, and if you're interested in writing romances, romancedivas.com is a free website. Romance writers are really nice, I think, because we all love love, and they're just so helpful. I've learned so much about marketing as well as the writing process from them, and it can be extrapolated to other genres too. So there's a lot of self-publishers in the romance genre, and they're doing pretty well.
Very good, very good. Mark, science fiction? How does that relate to being a cop?
Well,
I mean, maybe it's because, oh, no, I'll let
Never
you
mind.
explain it.
I've always been extremely interested in, I call it action science fiction, kind of military-based science fiction, you know, not necessarily space operas like they talk about, but strong heroes, lots of action, usually some little bit of military, something like that involved. Also, you know, possibly law enforcement because of my background. I've got a background in both. I've also started writing a novel based on my experiences in law enforcement with the Department of Homeland Security with a female protagonist that I was pitching at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association conference we had about a month ago. I feel I can write a novel that's not only interesting, but it's probably a little bit more realistic in some ways, because I think that's the one thing that people both in the military and law enforcement have when they read something. They start pulling their hair out when they read something that just, you look at it and you go, that's not the way you do it, you know. And so I think that's kind of what I'm also aiming for, is fiction, but with a little bit of the old human condition involved and with some actual realism-based fiction.
Very good. So, Ingomar, you get to meet a lot of different authors. You have a lot of different genres that these authors bring to you. Do you have anything in particular that is interesting to you or that you kind of favor?
As a publisher, there are two things that are important, for the authors, of course, as well, but primarily if we take on a book, it has to be engaging. That's the most important thing we are looking for. It doesn't matter which genre it is, really. We have 5 genres: fiction, reference books, we have motivational books, and we have books for young readers. We have nonfiction books as well, a lot, which is very helpful. And it's also important for me as a publisher that a book has an impact on the reader. We don't want, and as an author, you should look at that as well. You don't want books that doesn't have an impact on the reader. You know, my wife reads a lot of fiction books on ebooks, mainly because she reads so many. We would need a whole library for that. But what I'm saying is she reads it because it's engaging. She likes to be entertained. And that should be the focus on books, in my opinion.
Mark, you mentioned about the Pacific Northwest Writers Conference, which happens every year. As a matter of fact, they just had their 62nd meeting over in SeaTac area. I've been to the Seattle, the SeaTac conference for the last 8 years. I've also attended Thriller Fest, which takes place in New York City, the Writer's Digest, also in New York City, and Whidbey Island and Edmonds. What have you attended, Iona?
A lot of local writing groups, mostly for critique, but we also have our KLAW meetings every first and third,
right.
Wednesdays at the Family Pancake House in Bremerton, East Bremerton, not on Kitsap Way. I haven't attended the Romance Writers Association of America because there was a time period where they were not accepting e-publishers, because there was a certain category, you didn't fit into that category. And so ever since then, I think they've actually made an amendment to that. I may go to one.
And Mark, you got into the Pacific Northwest Writers because I told you about it and you decided to go.
You beat me over the head.
Not too hard.
Not too hard. Told me that I needed to go, and that was probably one of the better things I've done in the last couple of years, because it also helps introduce you to some of the process of trying to get somebody interested in your work. So they actually had pitch sessions where you got to talk to both editors and agents and actually explain to them what you were trying to write in your ideas. And so you got some really good feedback and see how the system really works. I think especially for a beginning writer, if nothing else, to be able to walk up to an agent or an editor and try to sell yourself and explain to them what you're trying to do really helps you grow as a writer and also gives you that little oomph you need maybe to get published.
And Ingomar, we know you're going to attend one pretty soon. We're going because you and I are going to be attending the Booksellers, Northwest Booksellers trade show the end of this month and beginning of October. Well, I'd like to say at this time a great thanks to Iona and to Mark and to Ingomar joining me today for this introductory episode of KLAW, the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. And for this, I'd also like to thank the Bremerton Kitsap Access Theater Television for its support of us. I hope that you have all your stories ready to go and you're ready to put them into print for the rest of us to see. And so at this time, good day. Have a wonderful writing career in your future. I'm Peter Stockwell, host of KLAW.
Make a wish on whispered stars for a road and faster car. And wait, see if it comes true. For a house on distant streets, dream of nights in softer sheets. There's beach. Ooh, so I know you're tired, so leave it to the tide and that next light. When weather's right, come sailing home, let the dark subside. Just leave it to one side, I'm on your side. When weather's right, come sailing home again.
Did we break something?
No.